Don't leave. Good morning. I don't know why you're all here to listen to me talk, but hi. This theme is simplicity, which was actually pretty easy for me because I'm pretty simple in the brain and also how I work. And I guess I'll start with a little bit about what I do. I think my first title would be a mother to James. We Jimmy up there. I think he changed everything. So before James, I was a tornado, which I still am. I just ran and do a million things at once, but he kind of forced me to simplify my life in so many different ways. So as a job, I am an artist, which is a dream to be able to say that's what I do for a job. I was always told that I couldn't. You fucking can. Can I swear? I guess I am now. I'm also a published author, which is a relatively new thing. I just released my first book, which was a year in the making. So go and look at it and teach yourself how to draw and paint. I am a photographer as well. I'm self-taught. I'll go over how I kind of came about that. That's another kind of act of simplicity after moving to Australia and knowing absolutely no one or what I was going to do. I'm a creative director, creative consultant, and I've also founded a kind of community-based thing, I don't even know what to call it, called Beige Baby, where when I had James, I was alone in Australia, I didn't have any family, and I got put in a mother's group that kind of didn't align with what I wanted to do or kind of my ethos and how I wanted to raise James. So me and my friends started our own, and it all, again, surrounded against simplicity. And it was all just about having a village and doing things that kind of aligned with what we wanted, which was all across art and culture while raising children. So simplicity, I think, is like a running theme. I'm really glad I got this word, by the way, because if it was anything else, I would have been like, I don't know how I'm going to relate this to my work. But simplicity kind of started when I moved to Melbourne. I kind of filtered into photography. So I moved here, I didn't know anyone. We moved to Greensboro. Sorry to offend anyone that's from Greensboro, but there's not much there. I moved from Glasgow. I'd finished art school in Manchester, which was just such a vibrant city, full of culture and art. Moved to fucking Greensey. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? We decided to take a break. My husband's a sculptor, but at that time, we both met at fashion school. We had no idea what we were going to do. And he just immediately fell into being a bricklayer, stonemason. So he's a stonemason to trade. So he was just back on building sites, earning money. And I had got a Nikon and was left in this house, suburban area. I went to Savers every day. And then I decided to just pick up a camera and just go back to basics and learn again, just simplify everything and just pick up a camera. And then I just kind of got lost in Melbourne. We moved into the city, we tried a few different suburbs, and I was just working in just normal jobs, retail, whatever. I was a tailor, I was a painter and decorator for a while, which was hilarious. It was actually one of the best jobs I've ever had, despite getting up at 5 a.m. But then I found a job at Pop and Scott, which is, how young do I look in that photo? I found that and I was like, fuck, I've aged. I think that was about 8-9 years ago, but even I'm like, look at my thighs, they're so small. But that job was the first job that I got in Melbourne that was centred around something creative, something that I wanted to do. And I'd basically shelved all my wants and needs and what I wanted to do for a long time because it was just about moving to a new space and like finding my feet. But this was the first space that I really discovered that you could have a job that you enjoyed and that housed all the things that you wanted to do. So Poppy, I don't know if y'all are aware of Pop and Scott, but it went off. Back then it was popping. They were like, it was a place to be. Those painted pots were insane. They were like painting thousands a month. And I was actually Poppy's first painter. She'd had friends in before, but I think I was the first employee. And painting those basic shapes reminded me of what I loved doing, and that was painting. I'd been painting walls and skirting boards, and all of a sudden I was back to painting interesting shapes and beautiful colours. So that, just going back to just learning about shapes, really started the journey on where I am today. I think you can see a direct link of the influence in working for Pop and Scott through everything I do. Before I worked there, when I was at art school, I would do really intricate portraits. I loved old people. I'd draw old people. I'd do more conceptual art and documentarian style kind of projects. And then this work at Pop and Scott took me back to the very beginning. And I'd also watched, I talk about this all the time, but I watched a documentary on Picasso, which I tried to find today and I couldn't, so I was going to share it. But I think they talk about the same thing in Anyone, how by the age of like 14, he was a Renaissance style painter. And then during his trajectory over being an artist and all the amazing achievements he had, once he'd set himself this task, like thinking that when he mastered the skill of being a Renaissance painter, like he'd made it. But then he made it and he'd done it. And he was like, what now? What do I do now? How do I challenge myself? Like, I've got here. So he decided to go back to primitivism, and should have done that. Primitivism, and went back to looking at cave paintings and how people portrayed a story through shapes and movement and colour without much detail. And that kind of stuck in my head, and then applying that to how I was painting at Pop and Scott. We got a pot, we measured it, we broke it down, we made templates and we painted it. And the shapes just started to come in, and I started to produce really simple shapes. I actually didn't even have a compass. I used to draw around plates, because we shared a studio with Bruce Rowe at Anchor Ceramics, and he was like, use whatever you want. And I used to just go in and pick up these bowls and plates and have a sheet of paper, and just after hours or on weekends, just like build up compositions with plates and stuff I found. And one day he came out and he was like, have you heard of a compass? And I just forgot about it. And I was like, fuck yeah, circles, compass, duh. So again, all these things that are just like the most simple things you just forget about. So working at Pop and Scott, everyone around me was inspiring me to paint again, and just being exposed to all these things. And then it just so happened to, for the luck of draw of Instagram, when it was in its heyday, people just started being interested in my work, which was amazing. And then all of a sudden, after years at art school trying to figure out what my style was going to be, anyone who is an artist or a creative, there's this thing that you're constantly told, like, what's your style? What's your identifying mark? And how are you supposed to answer that? It happens when it happens, and that just so happened to find me. And then, the best thing in my life happened. Solange Knowles emailed me one morning. It's like, yep, cool, woke up. I actually woke up like screaming, looking at my phone, and my husband ran in. And he's like, what are you screaming for? I was like, I've got a fucking email from Solange Knowles. Like, that doesn't happen. So her team had found one of my paintings that I'd done, which is like the simplest fucking thing in life. Who knew that this was going to be the thing that was going to make what I was doing something more important to me? 2 semicircles in a circle. How simple can you get? Like, really, when I still think about it, I'm like, all those things I was trying to do, it was the fucking circle. Like, why? I was like, I don't understand this. This happens a lot. Like, things that I think are going to go in the bin, someone looks at it and go, oh my God, I really love that one. I'm like, are you joking? But this one's kind of really changed what I was doing in my mindset. I'm pretty thick, but I'm also, I'm smart in some ways, but it takes other people to come in and be like, you could actually make a business out of this. So at this time when Solange used this work, it was inside the Guggenheim. That photo there is like my favourite photo in the world, because if you zoom in really tight, like I've technically had work in the Guggenheim because it's on the floor and it's associated with Solange. But my friend went on my website and he's like, dude, you've got 40,000 people on your website and you've got nothing to buy. Not a single dollar can be exchanged. You've just got a website showing off, but there's nothing to buy. And I'd put off doing prints for a long time because I was like, I'm an artist. I'm not going to do prints. That's like, you're either an artist who's serious and then you go with the gallery and you do all these things, or you sell prints. And I was like, then I'll become like a print artist. I don't want to be a print artist. But then, why would I not want to make money? That's the aim, right? And people used to always say, in this era at Pop and Scott, like when I was starting out, there was some people that worked in there and they used to say people were commercial artists in like a derogatory way. They'd be like, yeah, but they're a commercial artist. And you're like, but dude, they're making money. Like, do you not want to make money? So commercial is good, you earn money. So that's when I started just really stripping it back again and like, I need to create something really small, easy line of print so people can start buying and spending money on my work. And yeah, it worked. COVID hit and it was the best thing that could have happened for me because people actually bought my work, which was great. But at this time, in 2022, when COVID came in as well, I also had a son. And before James, there's nothing I would say no to. I'm kind of still like that, to be honest. But there's nothing that I wouldn't do, and there's no job that's too small. I'll do any job. I'll get my hands dirty. I'll do everything. But then when I had James, I had to really think about what I was doing. I worked up until the day before I gave birth, and then I had about 2 weeks off because I'm a psychopath. Regret now, deep regret now. But I went back to work after 2 weeks and I was like, I can do it all. Fuck this. I'll just strap this baby on and do everything. I'll just go to work. And I did. And I also didn't ever ask if it was okay to bring a baby to whatever I was doing. I was like, you want women to do everything? You want me to fucking be a mum and excel in my career? And I just show up with a baby and just like, you deal, it's your problem, you deal with it. This comes with me. But then I went full pelt until he was about 8 months, trying to do everything in the studio, running around doing jobs, and then was like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Who am I? What am I doing? And I really had to have a word with myself and reassess, bring it back to remind myself, like, what are the simple things? You can have it all, but you can't do it all at the same time. So I had to strip everything back and reassess everything and pull it back. And the way I manage it now is like when I'm with James, I had my son and I wanted to be with him. I didn't want to give up any time with him at all. But I also wanted to remain myself and still have my practice and still work. And I found like the only way to do that for me was to draw a line in the sand and be like, I'm not being a great mum and I'm not being a good worker because I'm pulling myself in 12 different directions. So when I'm with James, I'm not working. Like, do not contact me on a Tuesday. But when does everyone contact me? On a fucking Tuesday. But when I'm with James, I'm with James. And when I'm at work, I'm at work. Like from the minute I start, like I'm ready to go. And I find like really keeping that simple, definitive line is like, this is when I work. I work Monday, Wednesdays and Thursdays. If anyone wants to message me, that's when you message me. And on Tuesdays and Fridays, I'm just with James and I'm a mum. And that's all I do. And I feel like that's the best lesson I learned, was really pulling it back and just being those two things. Simplicity in terms of my practice and how I work, that's probably the basis of how I do everything. I've got a factory process mind. Don't know if that's a technical term. But I run everything like I was on a production line. Someone taught me that really early in life. Like, I think I was actually working in a supermarket. And every job that you get, you break it down into easy steps so you can do A, B, C, D straight away. So I apply that to everything, whether it's working on a project with people or whether it's in my own business. I start, Lara down here, she's worked with me before, and I start the day the same every time. I have to clean. I have to clean before I do anything and reset, line all my tools out, write what I need to do, write a list, and then I start working. That list is never complete anymore, but I feel like having that system in place where it's the same process every time makes me stay clear in what I'm doing. I'm going to flick by this one because there's my work, but I'm going to flick by because I don't like to like that. I've just went over this, like always returning to basics. The best advice I've ever got in life, Nike, it's actually from my husband, just do, and we've just spoke about that there as well. The thing that always sticks in my head, and when I've been teaching people or whether I'm working on my own project, you're going to think of a million reasons why you can't do something. Just do it, even if it's shit. I guarantee you're going to make a mistake and then something really good is going to come of it. And how many times have you had an idea? I have 9,000 ideas a day, and literally one of it will get followed through. So the best thing you can do is just do it. And if it doesn't work out, there is something that you're going to learn. There's other jobs that I have. So I worked with Little Company, which is just up on Stanley Street. If you've never had a facial there, please go immediately and get one. I've actually got one this afternoon. Really chill. I'm not joking when I say it's good. But again, like simplicity, I think when you look across everything I do, it's a real distinct kind of theme. And I didn't really think on it until I got served this theme for this talk. But even looking at interiors, like I'm not an interior designer, but I do love anything that involves design. And when it comes to working in a space, this project in Collingwood, I'd worked in other clinics with them before, but never with an architect. And when you're working with multiple different designers, it's really hard to kind of have your vision put across. But I think working on something like this, again, returning back to just keeping things as simple as possible, it's really easy to get carried away and over-design and overdo stuff. But if you pull it back and think, what is the main kind of themes that you need in a space? When I'm working with other people, I think of the 5 senses, which is a really good one if you're ever going to do something working with other people or trying to present an idea. If you think on how you can connect with the 5 senses, that's something I really focused on with Little Company. So again, if you're walking into a space that deals with something that's restorative, something that's going to involve touch, smell is huge. Smell gets you in like a frame of mind. So I always wanted to ask myself those simple 5 questions. What do I want it to smell like? What do I want to feel? What do I want to touch? And all these things can apply to my work as well. What do people think when they look at it? How are they going to feel? Beige Baby is just like a tiny one I wanted to touch on. I mean, we neglected it for a massive time during COVID because my business partner / best mate moved to Byron Bay, New South Wales, as everyone did when COVID hit. They wanted the beach. But this was something that we started and created as well with just the idea of community, which is the most important thing for me, having that connection across anything, whether it's work, whether it's friendships, whether it's anything. People are so important to me. I really love making connections, and community is so important. And I think we all realised that in the last few years as well, just how important our circle was and how many people that we have around us that we don't connect with, i.e. go and talk to your neighbours. I love my neighbours. But Beige Baby as well was something so simple. Like we created that t-shirt that says no sleep club, because if you've ever had a baby, you know you never get sleep again, ever. And we created that t-shirt, and it was just this kind of, we wanted it to be like a nod of acknowledgement, so that anyone that we saw wearing that t-shirt, whether you're a parent or not, like, because stress and anxiety as well, there's loads of things other than children that keep you up at night, and that little nod, just seeing someone wear that t-shirt, it's always like a little kind of, I don't know, a little cue that they're going through the same thing, and we're all people. So when it comes to like designing, simplicity sometimes is always the best. But yeah, I'm done. That was really scary, guys. I hope I answered some things on the topic of simplicity, but yeah, I think that's a common theme of everything that I do. I mean, I paint circles for a living. How more simple can you get? That's literally all I do, is draw circles. So, was there any questions? Are you ready for questions? I've got no idea how long I spoke for.
You were perfect. Thank you.
Sorry, it's
so
all
much.
a blur. I've got no idea what I just said.
You nailed it. It was fantastic.
I'm like, was that 10 minutes or 20 minutes? I don't know.
It was perfect.
Good.
While you have a think on questions for Bobby, I'm going to ask one because I've got the microphone. So, Bobby, as someone who very easily gets seduced by newness and sparkling new things, and as a result, I often end up over-committing to too many things, all of which I love. And I love the idea of paring things back and simplifying, but the practice of doing it seems to be quite hard. So I was wondering if you have any like markers, or how do you know when you've overcommitted and you sort of need to go and pare back?
Well, this is the easiest one, because as soon as you said you like sparkly things, I have a major shopping problem. Like really during COVID, like one point what could we do in lockdown? Like I just shopped. And when you're breastfeeding as well at night, all you do is shop. And then one day I looked around, I looked at my bank and I was like, fuck, I've spent a lot of money on shit. And before you know it, I've got all these things in my wardrobe, and I think I watched Marie Kondo, and I was like, I need to condo my life. Everything else, like I'm pretty simplistic, but when it comes to like consuming, I think everyone is caught up in consuming. It doesn't matter what it is, we all consume. And at one point you realise how much money you've wasted and how much money you could have spent elsewhere. And I am the organisation queen. I have OCD, but I think it's like a superpower. I'm really organised, and clothes and drawers are my jam. I used to have a folding board. I'm a psychopath. But how you paid it back, and anything, I guess you can apply it through anything. Like, how does it serve you? Clothes is like the easiest thing to relate it to, because I'm just going through a massive clean out. Lara knows, I always give her stuff. But I'm like, have I wore this? Does it serve me? Why do I have it? And could I get something better if I get rid of it? And around my house, the same applies. We've been trying to kind of pare back what we have around the house. I love things, magpie, love objects and art and cushions and everything. And at one point you look around and you go, I've got a lot of stuff. I've got a lot of things. And then I think it's the question and being really harsh. I'm really harsh with myself. Like, have I wore that in the last 12 months? No. Get it out. Look around the house and actually empty rooms. I empty and start from scratch. That's the best thing I do. If I'm going to do anything, organise my studio, clear out my work, clear out my house, I empty and start from scratch again. It's the only way. It takes triple the time, but also works. Start from zero and then build up again and edit everything. Edit out your life.
Okay, I'm starting to get some real insight into why I'm such a nightmare, because if you've seen my cupboard, I've got clothes from when I was like 16 and I was like, I might come back to them. Sorry?
Future you might want them. See, I'm the worst. I'm like, keep
No,
them.
because this is what I do.
I would love to organise your wardrobe.
Oh my God.
It's my favourite thing in the world. I'll do it. Available for wardrobe cleaning. It's my favourite thing in the world.
Accepted.
Yours would be good. You've got good colour.
Oh, thanks.
I'll colour code it.
Oh, stop it. Do we have any questions for Bobby? Yeah.
On the other end of the spectrum, is there anything that you find when you're designing is too simple?
I'm just going to repeat that quickly for the video. So the question was, is there anything that you find is too simple when you're designing?
Not really. That was a bad answer, I guess. But I always think it's easy to go over. It's easy to over design. And it's when you start to question and try to simplify, that's when things start to get interesting. When you actually start to pare something back and actually really question what is essential and what needs to be there. I think that's when the interesting stuff happens. Because that's something my husband does. He overdoes. And I'm like an underdoer. Well, my technical terms are amazing. But we've just started painting together and we're so opposite. Like, he just keeps going and he does paintings and I'm like, stop, do not touch it again. I go to the toilet, I come back and I'm like, what the fuck did you do? It's like a full different painting, like, stop. So I feel like it's really important to know when to be simple and when to stop. He doesn't. He goes like 4 levels over. And that's, we're finding out ways to work together because I'm like, it's done. There's like a single dot. Done. And he's like, it needs 45 and a smear and finding the balance.
Yeah.
Nothing's too simple. A single dot on the paper works for me.
I love it. We did have one question via the Slido, which was, do you ever feel imposter syndrome and how do you deal with it if you do?
Every day, right now. All the time. Yeah, I just think in any scenario, in any situation, I think by nature humans always feel like we're not deserving. I think there's that thing that we all need to work through. I certainly don't feel deserving. Like, there's a lot of things. Like, I actually really struggle to talk about myself. I love talking, but this kind of situation is actually my worst nightmare. Everyone's looking at me and I don't know, I don't like being in the centre. That's where I feel uncomfortable. Like, I don't deserve, like, why the hell do they want to hear me speak? But I think that's something we all need to work through because individually we're all interesting, everyone's different. And that's something I deal with all the time. All the time. I find it really difficult. Like, I've just wrote a book and it came out at the start of September and I really struggle to even talk about it. I'm almost embarrassed. And it's something that it's like a dream and to be honest, I've not even acknowledged the fact that I've even done it. I think that comes from family as well and upbringing. My parents are really good in a crisis, but the minute you do something good, they're like, pfft. They can't. Like, I sent my aunt my book and she, oh fuck, this is recorded. Don't want. Cut that.
We'll edit this out. We'll edit it out.
I sent my aunt my book and she just said, thanks. I was like, dude, I fucking wrote a book and I get a thanks. I'm like, well done. So it's like, I think the way I've been brought up, it's like, you tell them that you're upset about something or you broke your foot and it's all like, oh my God, rush to be there. But when you actually achieve something, it's like, you're kind of ghosted. So I don't know, I just feel like I'm still dealing with that. I'll come back to you.
I was going to ask a question about like Scottish versus Australian culture. We're pretty similar in lots of ways, but then the Glasgow art scene is massive and coming here to re-establish yourself. Was there a kind of culture shock of some things easier or some things kind of like we should have more of a Scottish way of doing things?
Yeah, well done. You even nailed Glasgow. Most people are like, where in Ireland are you from? And I'm like, the rough part. Yeah, huge culture. So I am in love with Melbourne. I love Scotland too, but I'm just obsessed with Melbourne. I'm like madly in love with it. I think it's just incredible, but I feel like for Australia being so big, it's pretty small. Like the creative industry is tiny, and when it's quite behind, like in terms of like Europe and Scotland, like it's very saturated. There's a lot. When I was in Manchester, there's just, I don't know, it seems smaller, and I think there's so much talent in such a tiny, tiny space. I feel like everyone is very, very guarded. No one will tell you anything like, where'd you get that paper? And they're like, nowhere. Like, they won't tell you anything. Whereas the best thing I thought about Melbourne when I moved here, coming into the creative industry, is everyone was really willing to help me, which I find really almost quite like taken aback. Like, why is everyone being so nice to me? Everyone's willing to help you and tell you where they got something or put you in touch with the right person. That's like the most standout thing about Melbourne, is like there is so many interesting things happening and there's so many people willing to help you. Whereas I feel like back home, I feel like it's a bit closed off. People are more guarded with what they do and their contacts. And that's my favourite thing. I just love Melbourne. I really do. I love it so much. I don't know what it is. There's just like a buzz about Melbourne, and especially when you go to other places. Being an outsider, when I've went to Sydney or Brisbane or Perth or anywhere else, Byron Bay, Byron Bay, I have to say this straight accent. No one knows what I'm saying when I say Byron Bay, and they're like, I've not heard of that. I'm like, Byron. I feel like Melbourne's special. It's got a thing. It's got something that nowhere else has, and you can't put your finger on it and you can't describe it, but I think everyone here is really interested in design and culture and creating, so that's the difference. I feel like when in Scotland, people are massive with tall poppy syndrome. If you're doing anything, they kind of want to cut you down, and I think the biggest thing I notice and miss, to be honest, is the banter. Like Scottish people are really mean to each other. Like, but it's endearing. Like, it means that they like you, which is such a fucked up way of showing it. Whereas sometimes people just think I'm being really cheeky here, and I'm like, no, that means I like you. That means I really like you. But definitely the culture. Culture's the best, yeah.
Well, Melbourne loves you too, Bobby.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I love Melbourne.
Any other questions for Bobby? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Do you know what? This is really bad, but I fucking love swearing. I think it's like, I do it, well, but not in an aggressive way. If someone swears at me with aggression, I'm like fetal position, crying, but then it's like I use it, so I actually wish that I could stop swearing a wee bit, because I watch it back and I'm like, dude. And my dad actually is like, I'm not allowed to say bloody hell in front of my dad, which is hilarious because he's Scottish. But James, I think it's really cute when kids swear, and I kind of encourage. I'm a bad mum, but sometimes I'm like, what bad words do you know? And he goes, fuck. And I'm like, yes. But then he actually tells me off. He's like, Mum, you said a bad word. But just yesterday, he was watching a programme where, crap on YouTube, where like cars and trains were crashing, and he was talking to himself, and I just kind of stuck my ear in. He's like, poof, fucking train just crashed. I was like, I do love it. I love swearing. So just they'll get shouted at school, so let them swear all they want at home. You know. Yeah. I say fuck's sake at least 20 times a day. It's the best. The first time he went, fuck's sake, I'm like, yes. But, you know, what? It's just a word. Everything, any offensive word is just a word that someone has deemed offensive. So I'm like, just apart from terrible ones. But swear words, use them.
As a fellow potty-mouthed woman, I couldn't agree more. And someone actually sent me a research article the other day about the positive mental health benefits and human-to-human connection that comes with swearing. So, fuck it! Swear away. Probably got time for one or two more questions if anyone has one. Yeah.
If you're ever feeling like you're not productive or you're struggling with your mental health that day as a creative, how do you work on your mindset?
I mean, that's the theme of the week. Fuck. I feel like I'm having these things like once a week. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like, honestly, the past like 3 months, I'm like, I'm getting a job. Fuck this. It's always tax. Fucking tax, man. Fuck. I hate tax. That makes me want to get a job and like do a 9 to 5 and get holidays and like just show up and do my work and go home. But I have them a lot, especially I work myself. I'm not good at being on my own. It's like my number one thing. I hate being on my own, yet my job is I'm on my own every day. It's not very smart, is it? But I give up. Honestly, if I'm having a really shit day and I get there and I'm trying, one of those days, you spill your coffee, you get to work, you knock something over and you're like, I'm really not feeling this. I go to the shopping centres and I get a 30-minute massage and I'm just like, nah, it's not working, cut your losses. I go to the NGV, that's like my place. I'll go to the NGV or the Hyde and I'll be like, I'll go and look at people that I want to be like and then hopefully I'll catch the creative infection again and then I'll be like productive. So I think like when you fight it, your body's trying to tell you something, your mind's trying to tell you something, you're exhausted. I know it's harder if you're in a role where you can't just decide to take the time off work, but I think if you try and focus on, well, I'm not feeling that great and my mind isn't in a good place, then my go-tos are exhibition and exercise. And just don't. I used to fight it all the time and then you end up in this like vicious cycle of like, you're telling yourself over and over again that you're not in a good space and it's not working. So like, don't do it. I've always found that as soon as you decide not to and you go and try and see or do something that actually makes you feel good, you'll naturally want to go back and do it anyway. You can't run on empty. And I mean, like, amen to the last few years, but like, yourself is the most important thing and you can't give to anything else without your mind. So take the day off. Go for a swim.
I think that's such great advice, Bobby. And over the past, couple of years of doing this and also interviewing a bunch of creative people on our podcast, probably the most common thing that comes up is the importance of the balance of inputs and outputs. So if you're not getting your inputs going to NGV, being out in the world, going and doing stuff, you're going to run on empty to output. So we can't expect ourselves to just output 100% of the time. Sometimes you just need to, pack it in and go and get some inputs. We've got time for one last question if anyone has one. Otherwise, we'll wrap up.
Does anyone want to do karaoke? I feel like we're about to... It's the only time
What's
I've
your
ever held a
go-to
microphone.
song?
Oh, I've got a list.
Because I got Spotify right here, baby. We can make this happen.
I need at least 4 drinks before I do karaoke. No, I've actually started a playlist. No, because we got an Uber. We were going into the city and has anyone had the karaoke Uber? There's this woman who's got a karaoke Uber and we were going to an event and she picked us up, handed me a microphone, put on the disco lights and I was like, fuck off, this is amazing. And we sang the whole way to an event and I was like, how do I book you? And she's like, you can't, it's just luck of the draw. So, But I started a karaoke playlist because I'm like, I'm never going to get caught not knowing my karaoke songs. I'm like, I've got them all ready to go.
Amazing. I did not know that was a thing, but I'm going to be booking Ubers a lot more and be much more excited from now on.
She's amazing. I've had 3 friends that have had her as well. Amazing. And she
Has
rolls
anyone
down the
else
windows.
seen this? No?
She's amazing. Yeah, she's so cool. I love her. She's the best. Yeah, the best. But like karaoke without even having a single sip of alcohol, like it never happened before in my life, but you're just belting out on the motorway. It was great. That in the morning on your way to work, highly recommend. That's like a vibe setter. Or just buy a microphone and do it in the car. Or on the train.
Amazing. A whole new world of possibilities has just opened up for us all. Well, we'll start to wrap up there. Please give it up again one more time for the amazing Bobby Clark.